Alright, greetings and welcome back to episode 5 of EXO Plays Donkey Kong Country 3. And I just wanted to show this off real quick. Looking up at those icons in the upper left, what I think is going on is that there's like this dither filter that goes over it every other frame. And if the game drops frames, then it looks like that. It looks like it's flickering, like a checkerboard flicker. And I've always found that kind of annoying when the game drops frames. Yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to show you guys. Alright, so we're gonna return to the game here. In the last episode, we finished off Cotton Top Cove, the last of the second tier, or the first of the second tier worlds. Today, we're gonna be playing the other world in the second tier, that being Mekanos. Mekanos is a factory island world. And in this level, I used to think those things were fireflies for some reason, because when you're playing on a tiny screen, it's kind of hard to tell what they are. But those are in fact owls. I can't remember what their name is, but I'm sure someone in the comments knows, and I don't know. If I felt like it, I could probably look it up on DK Wiki or something. Or, I don't know. Kong pun, insert here. But I do have to say, because I've been talking about the music a lot during this playthrough. This track is called Nuts and Bolts. The original version of this track and the SNES version is high quality stuff, one of the best tracks in the game by far, and I'm almost willing to guarantee that Evelyn Novakovic didn't compose it. I'm almost 99% certain that it was a David Wise track. I don't know that for certain, but the reason I think that is because it's one of the tracks in this game that's actually really good. And most of her stuff is boring, like Voices of the Temple is. Voices of the Temple, it's an atmospheric little track, it fits that level, but if every song in Donkey Kong Country 1 was like that, I think it would be a boring soundtrack. And, I feel the exact same way about most of the SNES songs. I think a lot of the songs in the original game are boring and don't stand out. Like, the world map themes are really boring, especially the world map, but I guess the Cavern Caprice is really boring. They're also moody and depressing. Like, I don't know if depressing is the right word, but they're so dark and moody, and it's just like, do we really need that in a game where the plot is two primates in colorful outfits jump on crocodiles? Like, I feel like Donkey Kong doesn't need to be so dour. And that's my big criticism with the original SNES soundtrack of this game. It feels too moody, too depressing, too dour, and that's really not what is required of a game like this. And I screwed that up. It's easier to make that maneuver in the original version when the screen is bigger and stuff. But I digress. The reason I had to axe myself off there was there's a bonus room up on that platform, and the only way to reach it is with, a team-up move. And, yeah. So now we get to avoid the owls with their cannons again. It's kind of hard to believe that when I first played this game, I thought it was, all that hard. Like, there's some really annoying levels later on that I don't blame myself at all, but levels like this I thought were hard and I died a lot. I was 11, and this was basically the first DKC game I'd played. Like, I'd played the GBA version of the first game before this, but I didn't really play it that extensively, or I don't really remember much of that first time experience. My first time experience with this particular game in the trilogy, I have a lot of memories with. So basically, backstory time, and that should keep the commentary going for a while, more shop talk, it's back in like 2005 or 2006, and my family was going on a trip to Disney World. We were gonna go down to California and go to, I think Universal Studios, SeaWorld. We were gonna go to SeaWorld and Disneyland. And every time we'd go out on vacation, our parents would let us pick a game to play. And since my brother Eric didn't, he's been in playthroughs with me as well, like on Game Mavericks, the Zebros playthroughs that I do would be with him. He didn't come with to the Fred Meyer that day when we were gonna pick out the games we'd play on the plane ride and stuff. And so I picked, the 2 games I picked for myself and for him to split up amongst ourselves were DKC3 on GBA and Tetris DS. I think we already had DS's, and I guess the DKC3 GBA came out like a year after the DS was already out. This is the hardest part of the stage right here, because the patterns for those fireballs are getting a little bit more intricate. This actually reminds me of the second phase of King K. Rool in Donkey Kong Country 1 when those bowling ball, those giant cannonballs would come down. Yeah, the timing there is a little strict, but you can get through just fine. So, went on vacation, picked this game, and something about it just spoke to me. Morning, Dixie. Brigadier Bazooka here. All present and correct, I see. Marvelous. I fought in the Crimean War, didn't you know? But I've retired from the service along with Big Bessie. Who's Big Bessie? She's only the biggest and greatest cannon of all time. What a beauty. Have you seen Big Bessie? I haven't fired her for years. No ammunition, you see. You want to use my cannon, young Dixie? Not without any ammo, I'm afraid. So that might be tied to the Banana Bird Cave of this world, so keep that in mind. What was this level called? I don't fucking remember. Okay, one thing I do have to give credit. I don't remember if I mentioned this in the remake or rebreak or not, but toboggan levels. Returning from the first 2 games, it's like the roller coaster levels from the second game, the minecart levels from the first game. You're riding in toboggan, straightforward, and you have to focus on jumping over stuff. This time you're not confined to a set track, so we'll come back for that one later, why not? I don't feel like killing myself at this particular time. So obviously you can go anywhere, that's the big difference. In this particular level, you also have a hook on your toboggan, which allows you to snap onto the rails on the ceiling and ride them along. Coming up is an annoying bonus barrel. So I gotta keep my eyes peeled for that. Why don't I? You can actually jump on... Okay, so you make this particular jump. Man, there it is. If you bounce off of that ladybug there, that knick-knack, I think it's called. There were click-clacks in DKC2, and those are knick-knacks, you see. Just like how the sneaks are rip-offs of the neeks from the previous game. And if you try to bounce off of that, if you like go with the flow of the level and bounce off the knick-knack like I just did there, then you will bounce over the bonus barrel and miss your opportunity to get it. Then you have to kill yourself to try again. So that one could be annoying. Keep your eyes peeled for that knick-knack and try to avoid any trouble with that. And yeah, I do have to say, when I was playing both DKC 2 and 3, I did my practice playthroughs of those particular games on this channel, just on a portable screen, and the games are harder that way, in some way. Like, it's easier to see what I'm doing and to gauge the distance in pixels when I'm playing it through the DS capture card. Okay, so to get back to what I was saying, what are the critical differences between versions, if you ask me, is I swear they revised the physics on the toboggan. I swear that the jump is floatier now. Like you can jump all the way up here with this jump, and it will only start to fall when you let go. And I swear if you compare the games back to back, the versions, that the controls are floatier for this version of the game. And I do think that does make these levels a little bit easier now that you have the floatier jump. So, and I don't know. This is another one of those things where compared to the review, I feel like maybe obviously the Game Boy Player and the input lag on the Virtual Console kind of tarnished my opinion, or made me say something that I wouldn't say now, rather. Because I didn't have too much trouble with the toboggan levels during my practice playthrough. Like, they were harder on the original hardware compared to this, but they weren't like super as annoying and obnoxious as I remembered them. Part of that's, and even when I was playing, I did a practice playthrough for the Game Mavericks SNES run on my friend Ethan's CRT. Like, I literally just plugged the composite in. Like, I might sound like I'm sure most of the people who are watching this have done that all the time. But for me, I haven't owned a CRT in so long. I'm pretty sure at some point my family just gave ours away or threw it away or something, and now I haven't owned one forever. And so playing DKC3 SNES at a CRT, it's kind of eye-opening, actually. Like, with how much easier a level like Stampede Sprint is when you don't have any input lag, and just how much simpler these toboggan levels work. Like, input lag completely kills the toboggan levels, if you ask me. So make sure that whatever gaming setup you are using does not involve that. And thanks to the power of invincibility frames, we are here. And now I'm gonna have to kill myself to try again and wait through this obnoxious song that takes forever. Oy vey. Don't you love Kiddy Kong's crying sound effect? Isn't that so much fun to listen to? But I do have to say, the original track that would play in the toboggan stages, it's a track called Hot Pursuit. It's one of the better tracks in DKC3 on SNES, I'd say. Like, I enjoy the music in these stages, in the SNES version, but if you ask me, this version of the track is called Jangle Bells. That's the official title for it. Like, if you go into the sound test in this version of the game, which, spoiler alert, there's a sound test, it's called Jangle Bells. And it's... Alright, I almost fucked that up again. And in the original version of the game, there's a special cheat code you could enter. I think the cheat code was Mary. Like, if you entered your name on the main menu as Mary, it would unlock a Christmas theme for the bonus rooms. And they removed that. Like, I don't think that feature is in this version of the game, but the track that would play, there was like a special track that would play during the bonus rooms if you entered the Mary code, called Jangle Bells. And for some reason, when they ported the game over and created a new track to replace Hot Pursuit, they called it Jangle Bells. I don't know why. Like, they used the name for that for that bonus room, alternate bonus room theme that's not in this version of the game. I don't know why they did that, but if you ask me, this track as a whole is a hell of a lot better than Hot Pursuit ever was. I'd much rather listen to this song, if you ask me. This is where the VR missions, Swanky's Dash, start to get kind of obnoxious. Like, I don't know how they expect you to slow down and get those lines. Like, maybe that's where you're supposed to use the brake move for. But personally, I've always been able to get enough stars without having to use that, so there you go. Ripsaw Rage. This is kind of an interesting stage. And at the bottom of the screen, obviously, there is a giant... Paul Bunyan is chasing us. Paul Bunyan has a giant ripsaw, giant saw blade, hacksaw, whatever you call those giant saws that you use to chop down trees. Or saw through trees, rather. And the saw is going to be chasing us through this auto-scrolling level for the whole stage. And this level's pretty fun. This is an example of a stage gimmick in DKC3 that I'd say works. I can see what I'm doing fairly well. Bonus rooms aren't too annoying to get into. The gimmick itself is kind of creative and helps the level stand out. And I don't know, it's just you do have to haul ass in this bonus room, though. Like, the moment you spawn in, you need to get moving, or that saw's gonna catch up with you really quickly. And there we go, we got ourselves another bonus coin. And after we finish this world, I think we're gonna move on to the Lost World again and play another shitty Krematoa level that I hate. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah, so Hot Pursuit is one of the... It's a fine track, but you know, like I was getting at earlier, like I said, my problem with the original soundtrack is that it's too dark and dour and depressing. in a game that should be... that is pretty cartoony and colorful. Like, that's... like, the world map theme for the Northern Hemisphere in the SNES version of the game is, like, so... dark for some reason. I don't understand why this game needed to be so dark in the soundtrack department. So, obviously, in this version of the game, the world map music is, like, I think, basically like a Latin kind of beach remix of Simian Segway, which I really enjoy. And I really love the world map theme in this version of the game. It is the vastly superior world map theme compared to the original, if you ask me. This one, I recommend jumping into the green bananas so that you can grab them quicker. Because if they get off screen, then, you know, you're screwed until another one shows up. And you've only got so much time to grab these, so keep hopping around to grab them as quickly as possible so that the next one can spawn so that you can do it before your invincibility or the timer wears off. Once you get to the top, you just grab the bonus coin, and you're home free. And similar to the difference between the world map theme and this, and as I was getting at, the new soundtrack for this version of the game is all remixes of DKC 1 tracks. So this song here is a remix of Treetop Bop from DKC 1, which, if you remember, was the levels where you would run around in the tree houses. Oh, there it is. Ugh. Alright, I'm gonna use Kitty to throw it forcefully against the wall there. Oh, Jesus. This isn't even a hard coin puzzle, it's just me being bad at video games. Okay, apparently there's a branch up there that's blocking it, because it won't fucking let me do it. Like, just do it. Jesus Christ almighty. Oh, for God's sake. Alright, finally. Swear that is not a hard puzzle at all. It's just the Let's Play curse acting up. So, what are those treetop levels? Treetop Tumble, that's the track that plays in the forest levels. And, that's another example where, like, the track in the original is just, like, another one of these really dour, dark, depressing songs. It's just, like... And the tone of the songs is completely different between versions. Like the music, the original SNES Treetop Tumble song sounds like a theme that would play in an RPG when one of your party members died. It's that depressing. But thankfully, I don't know, I guess this is like all music stuff, this is subjective. The new track that they created for this version of the game is not dark, dour, and depressing. By the way, bonus barrel hidden up here can be easy to miss this one, so make sure you're going after it. Squitter is back. We saw him before, but this is like the first time we're playing him in a stage. He handles exactly the same way he did in DKC 2. He can shoot webs to kill people and to make little platforms in midair, so you use that to navigate through the stage, and then there's another factory level later on in the game that uses this more extensively. You can only have 2 web platforms at any time. The moment you make a third one, the first one will start to disappear after a while, so you gotta enforce those sprite limitations, kiddies. I'm not talking about Kitty Kong. Okay, so over here we have our coin. This is one of the more interesting coins in the game, if you ask me. There's this switch. Those enemies are, those Kremlings with the giant guns are called bazookas, with, you know, it's in the name of the level, I think. It's spelled B-A-Z-U-K-A, and that will be on the exam if you want to enter the EPG fan club. You will have to be able to spell bazooka correctly. And bazookas, their guns will shoot. They're basically like the cannon enemies from DKC 2, where they will continuously shoot stuff at you. More continuously than the cannons did, but when you hit those switches, it'll change the ammunition. Like, if you didn't find Squitter earlier in the level, which is hard not to because it's right in the beaten path, then you would have to use that switch to change it from TNT barrels, which will hurt you, to regular barrels, which you can bounce off of. So that's kind of the puzzle gimmick with this stage, and it's an interesting idea. It doesn't really feel like they ever do enough with it, if you ask me. Like, cannons, by the end of the game, you felt like they did a whole bunch of stuff with them in DKC2, but cannons in this game, they only really show up in this level and then in a couple other levels where they're just for, like, DK coins and stuff. But the GBA version of Treetop Tumble is my vastly preferred song for Donkey Kong Country, for the treetop levels in this game. I much more enjoy the upbeat treetop rock remix that they have going on in here over this sad RPG cutscene music that's in the original game, which I am almost certain Evelyn Novakovic composed for this game. I would be very surprised if SNES Treetop Tumble was a David Wise edition. But I digress. And, you know, I think part of it is that most of the reviews of the soundtrack I've seen of this game are always assuming that whatever remixed or whatever new track that would have to replace the old one has to keep the same tone as the original. Like, I've seen people complain about Treetop Tumble GBA because it is so upbeat. Sorry about that, folks. I just got an email from Jeb, or Discord message, rather. And it's just... Okay, before I move on with my discussion of, like, the tone of the soundtrack and stuff, as long as we're still talking about the soundtrack, this track, it's called Pokey Pipes, went from one of the most forgettable DKC songs you've ever heard on the SNES, to one of the best tracks in the game. Pokey Pipes GBA is a fantastic song, and a perfect example of why David Wise is such an amazing composer, especially compared to Evelyn Novakovic. Like, the original track was like, it was just like... That was the original track. It was just so boring and forgettable, and it's another example of the tone being way too dark for one of these monkey platforming games where you collect bananas and jump on crocodiles. Like, have a little levity in your music game. But this new track is just so solid and tight. It is the perfect balance of atmosphere and melody. Like, there's an identifiable melody in here, and one of David Wise's strengths as a composer, I find, is his ability to make atmosphere melodic. When Evelyn Novakovic tries to do atmosphere and ambiance, it just sounds like background noise. When David Wise does it, he uses it in service of the melody, and that's what Pokey Pipes does really well, if you ask me. So this track is, I think most people would agree that this track is better than the original, but whereas Treetop Tumble, I imagine, would be a lot more contentious. I imagine people who grew up with the original would be like, well, it's supposed to be dark and dour. But as for me, I played the GBA version first. So the fact that it is dark and dour in the original is really distracting to me, and I don't understand why they did it. Treetop Tumble on the SNES is a good song. It's just, I don't like the tone of it. I wish that they tried to keep things a little bit more upbeat for this platforming game, you know? And it's just like, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of, you know, with making something a little bit more moody and emotional. Like, in a strange twist, while most of the music in the original version of the game was pretty downbeat and dour, like I'm saying, strangely, the theme for Stilt Village is the most bombastic 2D platforming Mario-esque kind of music you will ever hear. Where it's just, it has these loud horns. It's just like... And then you play the GBA version and it's like reversed, where it became a little bit more emotional and kind of depressing in the GBA version instead of becoming more upbeat. Like, song that plays in Stilt Village is like I preferred that track personally. Call me a hypocrite or whatever. I'd say Stilt Village is one of the more middle of the road songs for the SNES version of the game, but Stilt Village in this game is really solid. In terms of just the quality of the composition is better. David Wise is a better composer than Evelyn Novakovic. I'm sorry. I'm sure Evelyn Novakovic is a nice person. She does have some good tracks to her name, but if you ask me, David Wise should have just done DKC3 all by himself to begin with. And it would have turned out a lot better in terms of sound, in terms of music. But that's just me. I have nothing against Evelyn Novakovic as a person, or even really as an artist. I just think she had the wrong idea about what kind of sound these games required. But I digress again. One thing I haven't complained about yet is we are playing as Purple Squawks again, and Light Jedi Mind Trick, or I think that's his name, informed me that Purple Squawks actually has his own name. His name is actually Quawks. So apparently he's a separate character in the Donkey Kong cinematic universe, which I suppose makes sense seeing as he has, a different color palette and all that. I believe our barrel is up here. And don't leave the level, like, this last chunk of the level becomes kind of like a little miniature maze. And if you keep going up and to the right, you'll eventually find the end level flag. But that was, this last chunk, you've got to go, make sure you find the coin before you finish the stage is all I'm saying. And yeah. And after that, you can leave. Like, there aren't any bonus rooms up here. Like, I don't even know what's over here. Probably the G. Yeah, you don't have the G yet, so it's probably over there. And, yeah. So, yeah, Pokey Pipes, really solid, fantastic song. One of the best tracks in DKC3 and GBA. Hits that perfect balance between atmosphere and melody. Like, there's an identifiable melody, and those two elements work in service of each other. Whereas with Evelyn Novakovic's music, I find that her music, the atmosphere tends to overpower the melody. Just click Kong's enemy. You must be destroyed. So this is Chaos, and I've barely gotten into the plot of this game at all. But Chaos is actually the main antagonist of DKC3. Wink wink. If you read the manual for the game, I think in the original version of the game, or I don't know, at least in the GBA manual, which I haven't read since I bought the game when I went to Disney World all those years ago. And I realized I never even finished that story. I know, there really wasn't much else left to tell. Like, I played the game and something about it hooked me in, and I've been a DKC fan ever since. Like, I dug up my old DKC 1 cart and played that. For some reason, it was forever until I played the second game. And for the longest time, DKC 3 on GBA was my favorite Donkey Kong game. Because I hadn't played DKC 2 at all, really. And I wasn't really a big fan of DKC 1 back in the day. And I've gained a much bigger appreciation for it in recent years. But then I played DKC 2, I got like the virtual console version and played that, and I'm like, I wasn't like super certain that it was my favorite one quite yet, but a few more playthroughs really cemented it for me. And then as time has gone on, my opinion of this third game has just waned, as I've actually played like the side content and stuff and compared that with the second and first games. But Chaos is pretty easy, as you can tell in terms of strategy. I say that as I get hit by the laser. Well, we get to fight him again, so I can explain how what you're supposed to do with that coming up here. Basically, how you fight Chaos is he will go back and forth across the stage and occasionally dip down with his rocket booster thing and leave fire trails. The fire will hurt you, so you basically have to time it so that you go under him before he does his next move, so that you can avoid the fire. And it's pretty easy to do. Just do a roll underneath them like that, and you will avoid it just fine. And then, after that, he will go into a new mode where he will start spinning around with those blades, and they will spin on 2 layers, and if you miss your first opportunity to do it, these boxing gloves will come out of the side. The boxing gloves don't actually hurt you, they just knock you away, but then in the 3rd round of the spinning blades, you can jump on them just fine again, so I don't know what the point was. So just avoid the fire for the most part, and that's really all there is to it. After you hit him a couple times, his head will come off, and you'll see this T800, or T100 inspired Kremlin robot face will come out. Chaos is supposed to be the leader of the Kremlin crew in this game. Like, apparently, after we basically fucking blew up Crocodile Isle, the Kremlin scattered, and King K. Rool is nowhere to be seen, and Chaos is supposed to be leading all the Kremlings right now. That's what I remember from the manual anyway, like the character description for Chaos would say that. After you hit him enough times, his top head will start going back and forth and trying to shoot a laser at you. So all you have to do is just keep him in the center of the room, and then dodge off to the left or right at the last minute. Like, he's gonna come over this way. His eyes will glow, and if you jump, it will almost always miss you. Unless if he's, like, directly overhead. Now he'll come back over, and then after 3 shots, Chaos himself will come back down so that you can deliver another blow to his noggin. I think that's it. We've beat the boss. Kong's win does not compute. Next time we meet, Chaos will win. In the original version of the game, he said, Chaos will be victorious. So I think they shortened the dialogue because of how much smaller the balloon is. They sure don't make boss battles like they used to. One attack pattern is enough for any gamer. I think you'd better go back and see Funky. I'm sure he can help you out. And on that note, I think it's time to cut things off for the episodes. That was, what was it, episode 5, I think? Join me next time in episode 6, when we will play the next Funky minigame and probably go back to Krematoa. So, yeah. Until then, I'm Exo, and I'll see you guys next time.